And suddenly it was a volcano of inner pain showing itself as a physical pain that most people, like myself, end up in hospital because you're like, this is terrifying. My body hurts and I don't know why. And suddenly, like in over a matter of a couple of hours. And that was the beginning because I then understood. I was like, okay, I have to listen to my body. My body has been storing up all of this trauma, all of this trapped emotion, all of the things I haven't said, all of the authentic me that I've squished down so that I'm acceptable and likable and, lovable. And I have to let this out.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. Honor is always given to me to welcome our guests. And what an honor it is to welcome them and to honor them because I know they're coming with a couple of things, very expensive time. 24 hours offered to every man, every woman. What you do with that time, man, will tell me about you. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator. It has created this individual that is before us. And I cannot wait to have a conversation with her. And so I want to honor her because I know she is going to share that aspect, parts of our journey. And in order to do that, she must become vulnerable. And we want to honor her with her vulnerability here and thank her for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. And thank you for coming to Threads.
Thank you so much for having me, Ken. I am delighted to be here, and I love that you always honor people's time. And I have to say that I think there is no better, well, there are few better ways to spend time than having conversations like this. So I'm honored to be here. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As it is my custom to ask this question to those that are presenting, because I want them to have an opportunity to crystallize, I tell people, your assignment that you have been called to do, that you discovered as you walk through and your obedience to the process of your journey. How do you serve mankind?
How do I serve mankind? This is such a beautiful question. And I think, we all serve in various different ways. But the way I serve is I want people to help people to understand their energetic body, to understand themselves, to come home to themselves, to remember who they truly are. And I think that we as humans, and certainly as, modern humans, spend so much time in our brains, and we think that we can think our way out of all and every issue that we have. And I'm here to try and help people really embody themselves and to understand that they are energetic beings and that the energy that they've experienced, all of their experiences, their traumas, their life lessons, everything is held within the body. And this is not a truth that came quickly or easily to me. I've been practicing yoga for a good probably 20 years before I began to really understand the true meaning of yoga. And I think it's a very interesting thing that when you say, oh, I'm a yoga teacher, people go, so you just are standing up in front of a class and telling people, how to do dog down facing dog or, triangle pose or whatever. But actually what I feel like I've come to is that I teach yoga in the bigger sense, which is that of uniting mind, body, and spirit. And the physical practice of yoga is just one essential piece of that jigsaw. But the other two, the mind and the spirit, are equally important. And when we get them all talking, that's when the magic happens. That's when we are able to really step into our true selves and live from a place of freedom and light and peace. And so that is my mission, to try and help people, show them the way. And the way that I do this is through the chakra system. I think it's such a beautiful, simple map over which you can lay all of your energetic world, physical, mental, and spiritual, within the chakras. So that's my mission, is to share the knowledge, the wisdom of the chakras with everybody, as many people as I can find who will listen to me.
Yeah, it's a powerful assignment. in Western civilization, we don't understand what yoga is about. We have the Western civilization understanding of it is just a physical thing. You cross your leg, you breathe a little, you do some things, and you're out of it, and you're gone. You sweat, and you come out. But when you go back to the history of yoga and what it does, especially I know that you did some trips in India and all of is a much more ancient culture.
Yeah.
The beginnings of it is about combining the mind, the body, the spirit, the whole thing. It's nothing like Western civilization yoga. When you talk about yoga, it's just two different worlds. Because if you say
Exactly.
yoga to someone in India, they will look at it different than if you say yoga to someone in Western civilization, unless
Yeah.
they're on that journey. One of
Yeah.
our
That's
customs here is to go back to our beginnings. I call it the beginnings of our beginnings, if you will. And as we are moving through life, heading to our independent from the first station that we hang out, roughly about 18 years, is that family unit. In this place, we're going to learn our communication skills. We're going to start developing our behaviors right here. We're going to start working on our mindset, things like that, our beliefs. All of this is within this mix that is here in amounts of strangers, if you will. Mom and dad are strangers, and this new energetic being has been given birth and given the opportunity to show up within this group called the family. What was your family unit?
my family unit was ostensibly and to the external eye was very stable, very lovely. I lived in a nice house. I had lovely parents who were, still do happily. And so my mum and dad are still together, 60 odd years on, still living life to the full, and a great example of living positively and actively and with interest. And so they showed me a great example in terms of, you know, grasping life and, taking opportunities and travel. They love to travel. They love to see their friends. They love to go to the theater. They're really active. Sometimes I get exhausted just hearing about what they're doing still, and they're in their 80s. So, and I had an older sister and an older brother. And I ostensibly, as I said, had a very lovely childhood, but I was sent away to boarding school at the age of about 12. And so it's interesting because there are so many layers to all families. And I don't think you begin to understand what the family was or what it gave you until you really have some perspective, some time to look back and see the perspective of it. And also to learn about the history because, my parents were of that generation where there wasn't a huge amount of emotional communication. There wasn't a huge amount of openness. It was all just, it was just surface chat. It was, there were deep friendships and relationships, but they weren't in the public.
Yeah.
That wasn't what was demonstrated to me as being the way to communicate. So I, as an adult, realized probably too late that I didn't really have the tools with which to communicate my emotions. So my mum fell desperately in love with my dad, aged 17, got married like the month before she turned 20, had 3 kids before she was 30. Lived this life of very happy servitude, looking after everybody, looking after my dad, looking after us, looking after the house, looking after everybody. And there was a lot of value in her beauty. She was a very beautiful, still is a very beautiful woman. And so there was a lot of value placed on that. And so when I was growing up, I learned that my value was really through being a good girl, being perfect, looking nice, being pretty.
Yeah.
And so it's taken really quite a long time for me to unpick all of that. So, and then of course there was the boarding school thing. So I went to boarding school at 12. And boarding school, it wasn't unpleasant, but it wasn't family. It was all girls and it's, pressure to be academically good and sportingly good. And I was sort of decidedly average at most things. And so, yeah, it was challenging. I kind of now I can see that I kind of just switched off. I just survived it, as in I just tolerated it. I just went through the motions. And yeah, so it's taken me a lot of my adult life, probably from sort of the last, I don't know, 20 years, 15, 20 years, to really kind of begin to sift through all of that and find out which bit is me and
Yeah.
which bit is my parents and which bit is the school and which bit is society, because there was a lot of I feel like I was very impressionable. I was very much an empty vessel. I just wanted to I was a people pleaser, very
Yeah.
much people pleaser.
Yeah. I
And
wanted
so,
to ask you that. How did you interpret that decision, Roseanne, that mom and dad made with putting you in the boarding school? Because again, I tell people trauma can be a very simple thing. It's usually from a decision made by those that are above us, or, have some kind of authority over us in a way, or out of a relationship. That decision that was made by mom and dad, what was your interpretation about that to you personally, inwardly? How was it, an abandonment thing? How did you interpret that decision?
I mean, in the moment, I didn't interpret it. I just went along with it because that's what my sister had done. That's what my brother had done. But I certainly in later years, it definitely comes in the umbrella of abandonment. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So as
It's a very powerful thing. And there's a lot of people talking about the damage that boarding schools
yeah,
do. My brother, for example, who was my best friend when we were little, he got sent away to boarding school aged 7, which was normal. Like, my parents did it because they thought they were doing the absolute best thing for us. And so I hold no animosity towards them for doing that, for making that decision. That it was a generous decision. They were trying to do the best thing for us, all of us. But I remember being desperately lonely. My sister had gone, and then my brother went, and then it was just me. And then, so yeah, it was a lonely childhood, I think. Yeah.
yeah, it is. That's, you said something that caused me to ask that question, was there was no family there. And
Mm.
so I can see this young girl, since there's no family there, being traumatized and being impacted because of that loneliness, if you will, can enter in depression, all these other feelings and darkness that can begin to enter into that individual's being and thought process, because in her mind, her foundation is not there, the family, her support. As she is now growing up in this, as you said, you surrendered and you are allowing yourself to be drift through, just most of us are. What we do in our life, we just let it happen, if you will. And you're going through life. What was your relationship to others? What was that communication skill style that you had?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I think what I did was because I wanted to kind of fly under the radar. I didn't want to be, main character person. I basically would go along with whatever anybody wanted of me,
Yeah.
and I would do what I thought other people wanted of me. So I think that the damage that was done for me personally um, was around relationships. So I went to an all girls school from the age of 4 to 18, and then I was catapulted out into the real world, having not really known what boys were about. I know it sounds so absurd. It's going to sound so ridiculous to some people. But boys, men, and especially because I had been modeled by my mother that, like, her main objective in life was to look after my father and provide him beautiful meals and a beautiful wife and a beautiful home and all the rest of it. I thought that, the way to happiness and success and life was to please others, to succumb to the wishes of men. And so that, as a young woman, between the ages of 18 and 20, late 20s, I suppose, I probably was not treated, I didn't treat myself with respect, and I was not treated with respect. And I allowed that to happen because I thought that I just needed to go along with stuff. So yeah, there was a lot of that's where the trauma kind of manifested itself, if you
Yeah.
like, in that space of me discovering who I was as a woman and what my worth was as a woman, because I thought my only worth was sexual. I thought that my only worth was, as a pretty thing on somebody's arm or, as an object. So I had objectified myself. I didn't know
Yeah.
who I was at all. And I'm just so grateful that I found an outlet that was me. And it was simply by going to a yoga class. I simply just started going to yoga, and that's where I felt my most true self. That's where I felt like me. But that was like an hour and a half a week.
Yeah.
So it's been a long old road to discover that, but it has been the road that brought me back into that knowing who I was and what my worth is, and where I was going where I was going awry in terms of my communication with other people, because I certainly did for quite some years.
Yes, one of the sins that we as human beings commit, especially when it comes to the family, that we commit against our family members, our children, if you will, is that we don't teach them how to seek validation internally.
Mm,
And
yeah.
we promote external validation so much so that they spend most of their life until that day of visitation happens, when you are beginning to look at yourself internally to see and to obtain validation from that place. And so when we seek outward validation, we will be abused. You will be abused by those that are abusers.
Mhm.
First of all, we allow the self, we abuse ourselves, and we give permission for those other abusers to be obedient to what we tell them. This is how we ought to be treated, and we do it. We set the stage, if you will. We do it unknowingly, but we set the stage. We set the rules, if you will, until we began to understand, no, I deserve better than this about myself first. And once we make those corrections, then the outside, the other relationships will begin to change as well. Here's this 20-year-old girl. She found yoga just happened. I love how we say these things. There's no such thing as that. There's the synchronicity of life. And so you were brought to this particular place to be introduced to yoga. You said this was the space where you began to feel yourself. And again, the self is in relation to this 20-year-old girl at that time. Talk to me as to what did self look like to her at that age?
Oh my goodness, you're asking a big question that, because it's a long time ago. Let me see if I can take myself back there. What did self feel like? It was scattered. It was lonely still. I was not in good and healthy relationships. Even my friendships were, slightly toxic, but I was doing that to myself. I had abandoned myself pretty fully at that age. And you can edit this out if you need to, but I was smoking a lot of weed. Had abandoned myself in because I was numbing myself. And so what self felt like was when I can bring myself back to how I felt when I was walking into the yoga class. I felt valid. I felt seen, as in but in a healthy way. I felt in touch with my body. I felt this beautiful communication with my body. My body was dying to speak to me and for me to listen. It took some years before my body really did begin to listen. Or I began to listen to my body, I should say. But there was something within those moments of quiet, of peace, especially, when you're doing a yoga practice, you are 100% in flow. You are in the moment. You are thinking about exactly what you're doing in that moment. And so it was a freedom from everything else in life, the pressures of trying to have a career and the troubles of relationships, or, work and so on. So it was an absolute haven of a calm and peacefulness that lived within me. And I now live with that sense of peace and calm and tranquility running through me every single day. I'm currently in the middle of renovating a big house, and it is stressful and expensive and noisy and dirty. And my husband gets really stressed out. And I just still find the absolute joy in every single minute. And I bless every piece
Yeah.
of wood that comes into that house. And I feel that sense of, it's that Anandamaya kosha, that deep within, that bliss sheath layer
Yeah.
exists for all of us. And I feel like I have access to it at all times these days. But I could just taste it maybe like 10 minutes in a class. And that's what I was searching for. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know. I hadn't got a clue.
So talk to me about because again, when you come into the yoga piece, you're just learning, and we were just getting our feet wet, if you will. And we
Yeah.
really don't pay attention. We're there, but we really don't pay attention. You're not 100% in it yet. And we live our life and we go through. And then one day, boom, situation happens that brings us back to the awareness that we need to begin to take this thing serious. Talk to me about that particular day, because I know, what you're dabbling. We all dabble. I started dabbling myself in meditation, and then I'm here and whatever. And then one day, boom, all hell breaks loose. And I have to go back, if you will, to the beginning to begin to, hey, this is serious. I need to now put those pieces together. Talk to me about what was it that brought you to that place where you had to now begin to look at your personal spiritual development seriously.
Yeah, it was a very, very clear moment. I was in India on yoga retreat, and I ended up in hospital with very non-specific joint pain, mostly in my hips. So I'd done a yoga day, and I went to bed and my hips started to just ache. There was just kind of a deep from within kind of ache. And I thought, well, this is funny. Maybe I've overdone it today or something. So I got out of bed. I was trying to ease it out, walk it off. I was drinking lots of water. This pain just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And it infiltrated all of my joints, and it went into my shoulders and my elbows and my knees. And I was panicking. So I ended up calling somebody. They took me into the hospital and they found nothing wrong with me, discharged me in the morning. I felt better, but week, and I came back to the yoga retreat, and my teacher said, I think you need to look at your sacral chakra, what's going on in your sacral chakra. And up until that point, I had never really paid much attention to the chakras. I knew what they were, but I hadn't really kind of gone deep there. So that was the beginning of my journey of going, I see. So here we have 30 odd years of repressed emotion and trauma, and the yoga and the breathing and everything that I've been doing during the retreat had cracked that open.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was a volcano of inner pain showing itself as a physical pain that most people, like myself, end up in hospital because you're like, this is terrifying. My body hurts and I don't know why. And suddenly, like over a matter of a couple of hours. And that was the beginning, because I then understood. I was like, okay, I have to listen to my body. My body has been storing up all of this trauma, all of this trapped emotion, all of the things I haven't said, all of the authentic me that I've squished down so that I'm acceptable and likable and, lovable. And I have to let this out. I have to sort through all of this stuff that's been pushed down physically, energetically, and learn to release it and welcome it and sit with it and process it. And so that moment in India, having just been dispatched from hospital for no, being there for no real good reason, that was my wake up call. That was my aha moment. That was when I was like, of course, like it was just such an, uh, you know, talk about light bulb going on. There was like
Yep.
a stadium's worth of light bulbs came on for me in that moment. I was like, okay, now I get it. Now I see why I do the yoga. Now I understand.
And
Yeah.
when you got there, because that revelation, again, because you were, you just happened, as you said, to walk into a yoga class. It never happened to walk in. You
Never
see,
does happen.
your healing and your revelation and your assignment was connected to that first initial contact when you walked in and you happened to walk in. All
Yeah,
your life and it was connected to that. And the synchronicity of life, I tell people, if you look closely, you will see it. And so here you are, you're awakening to the fact that we have all the chakras there and all of the energy levels within the body and what it relates to and so forth. As you begin to ingest all of those knowledge, the insights as to that from the ancient ones, those, because I know when you're really studying that, you just can't go and study the Western stuff. It just doesn't even deal with it. As you're looking into the ancient ways and beginning to gather insight and seeing the effect of that lab, I mean, the theory, reading and studying, and the lab being practiced out of you and seeing results. Talk to me about that process right there. Reading, studying, going in, practicing the lab, checking in with all the chakras,
yeah.
getting to become familiar with your energetic being along with your body, all of it. As you began to practice and do that, what did you begin to notice about you as that was happening on a
Mm.
daily basis?
Okay. I mean, the one word that is just flashing in neon lights in my head at the moment is awareness, because that's where the work really begins. We have this knowledge that we can get in a book and listen to in a podcast, and we feed ourselves these knowledgeable facts and these ideas and these new perspectives. And then we go off into our real world life
Yeah.
and, somebody cuts you up in the traffic, or, somebody breaks your heart, or you lose your job or whatever. And you have some, modern day trauma. And then your body instantly wants to go back to the old patterns, back into the kind of survival mode. And the magic happens when you can catch yourself between the incident that's happened, some trigger that might be a trigger back to childhood traumas, might be any kind of trigger, and catch yourself with awareness, as to have the awareness to notice when that thing is happening and be able to not go down the old neurological pathways, but to sit in yourself, to listen to what is happening within your body, and to be able to move forward from a place of understanding that this is a whole body experience. So your question, I feel like I veered away from your question.
No, you're right on it because it is the awareness is how you and I are called to live. That's the space right there. And people say
Yeah.
it's the present. It's called awareness. That's where
Yeah.
we have to live. And when we live there, it is the only place that I know where we will be able to catch that whole thing. There is no other place. You tell me,
Yeah.
Rosanna, in your life, is there another location where you're able to catch that? Are you aware of?
You have to, I mean, it is present moment,
Yeah,
absolutely living in the present moment
right
and
there.
being in the now. And that's where joy lives. That's where
Yep, that's where
happiness
it
and
is.
peace and contentment lives, in the now, because this is all we have, this wonderful moment where you and I are chatting here.
Yeah.
But having that presence of awareness when in all things. And so, yeah, that's how it has affected my life, in that I can go through life and my body will give me a signal. Say, for example, like during lockdown, I had a very bad bout of sciatica. It wasn't true sciatica, it was peripheral. Anyway, I had this very painful back leg sciatic type situation going on. And so I had to sit back with myself and going, okay, well, whoa, what is this all about? It was root chakra stuff, safety stuff. I had also taken on too much. I was pushing myself. I was teaching every day on Zoom. I was a very early Zoom adopter for the yoga classes. So I was teaching daily. I was teaching free classes. I was looking after people. I was doing, I had done too much, and was carrying too much, and my body gave way because I was trying to do too much. I listen to my body. When my finger starts to hurt, I go, so what is spiritually held within that finger, within that thumb, within my ankle, within whatever bit of me that is beginning to speak to me? And this is what I say in class. I say, you're in, let's say, Supta Baddha Konasana with the knees wide. I say your hips and your groins might be shouting at you. Just listen to what they have to say, and allow them to have their say, and then they'll quieten down. The body is a little bit like a toddler having a tantrum. It will make a hell of a lot of noise until you acknowledge it and you go, "It's okay. I'm here. You're safe."
Yeah.
And then we can move on towards opening and releasing what's there. So this whole work is about recognizing and listening to the body, having the knowledge to interpret it, having the quietness of mind and spirit to be able to notice amongst the hullabaloo of life, because let's face it, life is pretty darn busy, and it's purposefully taking time with myself to sit in meditation, in practice, just sitting quietly, just turning the radio off in the car and just letting the brain wander, listening to what the brain is saying. Because there's that beautiful thing about there's the inner self and then there's the ego. There's two of you who's listening to me. When the voice is going, who is it that's listening? Just having that little sense of awareness of all of the machinations of energy that are flowing within us constantly, and what privilege it is to be and experience that as a human being in this moment.
Yeah. Most of you guys, that are listening to our conversation, I wanted to put this in right here now because I understand, and I'm picking up and seeing some things that Rosanne is talking about. And one of those is understanding the body. It is one of the one of the first line of offense where that gives you some clues as to what to deal with. And here's someone that has some knowledge in that has her life has been that type of way, if you will. And as one that has been in that type of a way, she has gained much knowledge and insights. Many of you are sitting there in pain, your back pain and arthritis, all of these pains, this dis-ease, most of them in many ways, the origin is from a spiritual nature, and it's usually tied into one's trauma. And because you haven't been made aware of it, it resides there, this pain that was causing the emotion and the trauma, and it will stay there for years and then it'll manifest in the form of a physical ailment. Here is someone that has been through this journey, has insights about the chakra, has knowledge about where, how, and all those stuff. I want to challenge you guys that are in pain. I challenge you to call and text. I mean, get in. I'll give you guys all of her links. I challenge you to reach out to her. And what do you have to lose? You've had that back pain for years. You've had that arthritis. You had whatever pain you have. You've had it for years. I dare you to step out of your comfort zone and give it another shot and see, because most of our diseases manifest from that realm, and it only manifests in the body because we haven't dealt with it, and it's trying to get our attention. But what we do is run to the medical field. All they can do is give stuff to the body. They can't treat the symptom, the real core, the root cause analysis, as they teach me in corporate America. And so you're going to be caught in this loop that you're always walking with this dis-ease. That is an emotional trap that is in your body that needs to express itself to come out. I dare you. So here you are. You are learning about all of this stuff, and now you're going to walk into, and it's taking you deeper into your assignment. Talk to me about when your assignments began to become even more clear. The yoga teaching, yes, you've been doing that for years, and you started to incorporate the chakra pieces because of your awareness. You start doing podcasts, all of these different things, because these are just branches of one's servanthood. Talk to me as you're heading in that direction, the pull, because you're a mom, you got this going, you got that, and all kinds of stuff, and yet your assignment is there tapping on you saying, I need your attention. You need to get with it. Talk to me as to how did you navigate that whole process? How did you find your way out? How did you surrender to the process?
I don't, do you know, I did exactly that. I surrendered to the process. I had been writing notes and classes and, little sort of mini documents for myself for years. And I finally kind of decided that I would collate all of this stuff that I had, all of this knowledge, all of this that I had gathered over the years and put it together and put it into an offering that would be available to everybody and anybody. And I find that my intuitive side has led the way very much. I started doing chakra readings, which are the most incredible tool. And it is a real sort of, it's an intuitive reading of what somebody's energy centers, what is going on in their lives. It just came so naturally. I saw somebody else doing that. I was like, that looks, I could do that. I'm going to try and do that. And then I guinea pig all my students and I use you as guinea pig. So I learned how to do this. I've honed this craft over the last, several years. And now I just like completely trust that I have this intuitiveness that, I'll show up with a client with no notes, no idea what we're going to do, but we will get absolutely to the heart of what is going on for them and give them either practical tools, drop a new idea into their head, just allow them to sit and breathe and express themselves for the time that we are together. Like, it's come very intuitively. And a lot of my work has come through people requesting it. My podcast came because my students said, we want more meditations. I'm like, okay, well, I might as well do a podcast and then you can get them easily. Otherwise, I have to send them to you and that would be a pain for me.
Yeah.
So now my meditations, they reach across the world and I do, interviews as well. But the hub of my work, the chakra way, is an ever growing, expanding, morphing, organic thing because I have a course, I have a container, and then people come along and go, oh, that doesn't really work for me. And I'm like, okay, let's just work together and make it work for you. So I'm being led like most of my life. I'm being led by what feels right, in the same way that I fell into that yoga class, in the same way that pain just appeared in India. This course, this little business, whatever you want to call it, has just appeared because I had no other option other than just to do it. It seemed the only way to fulfill what my soul was just really desirous of, which is to talk about this stuff, to share this knowledge, to share this tools for a good life, for understanding life, for understanding yourself. I just like, how can I not? I'm not going to go and work in a shop or make, widgets. This is what I have to do. This is who I am. So yeah, I don't have a very good answer for that, I'm afraid, other than I have to. It's all I want to do. It's all I want to do all day, every day. I just want to write and listen and talk and meditate and learn and help and be of service.
Yeah, that is the right answer, isn't it? I mean, when it is who you are, you can only
Yeah.
do you,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And stepping into, and it's an interesting one because, after a lot of people come to me and they say, I'm looking for my purpose. I don't know what I feel purposeless. I feel lost. And the only purpose that we all have as humans is to just be yourself. And then whatever shows up from being authentically you and being honest and true to yourself, that's the right thing.
Yeah,
Could
I
be
agree.
anything.
I agree. I think a lot of people are afraid to even do that. And it's so simple.
Yeah.
And it's all because of the programs that we have put our faith in. We've
Yes.
surrendered. Most people that are not coming out or don't want to come out are those that have surrendered and just gave up. But if there's a little fight in you, for those that are listening to me, if there's a little fight in you, get in contact with her. Get in
Please do.
contact with her. If there's this little fight, you got this little flame. You've been told no, you've been told everything is wrong, you've been told this, you got nothing, but there's this little flame there. Get in touch with her. I'm going to provide the links. You need to get there because what's there? I'll put it in one word: freedom. Ain't nothing like it, man. When you are brought to a space by which you begin to see, we call that revelation, when you begin to see, your life change. And there's a guide that can walk with you simply to hold your hands and ask you those questions, because those questions, when she asks them, they are going to locate you so that she knows where you are and what questions to ask so that you can be brought into the light, because you're so busy in your life. You've got the
Yeah.
kids, you've got work, you've got the soccer team, you got this, you got that, the chess, you got it all. But here is someone that is willing to take the time, walk with you, hold your hands and say, let's go do this. And what is that? Let's go find you. Let's go find you. And it's a great journey, guys. And I am so honored that she came here and she allowed herself to be drilled by me as I ask all these questions. Let me ask you this one question before we go. There's about 8+ billion of us. You have a mic, and that mic is plugged into all of us. And you have an opportunity to tell us something. What would you say?
What would I say? We are all one. We are all one. We are all energy. We are all made of the same stuff. We all came from the same place. We'll go to the same place. We are one. We are nature. We are whole. We are one. That's what I would say.
And that's a powerful imagery, and I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. I love that energy. Um, you know, I can see it as you're speaking it and you spoke it. That imagery just landed in my mind, and I am going to rest with that. I want to thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment, allowing us again access to you, your preciousness, your wisdom, your insights, all of those things that created you, and give us an opportunity so that we can become better human spirits while we're here on this planet. And we're going to send you guys her links. I'm telling you, I dare you to get in touch with her. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.